Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about my case study assignment. The title of it was The Cramping Lacrosse Player. To give you a little bit of background on this athlete, he is a 17-year-old male high school lacrosse player. He's about 5'10", 145 pounds, and he plays midfield and offense. So he is basically on the field the whole time he's playing and obviously using a lot of his energy systems. But besides for this, just a little bit more background on him. I've known this player for about 3 years, and he's a junior now. He also plays football in the fall, and he is a quarterback. So he's doing a lot of running and such, but he's also not doing as much as he would be in lacrosse season. However, he still is experiencing the cramping during the football season. So that's where this all started. Um, it kind of happened towards the end of the season, last few games. It was still hot out, but kind of that change from that summer to fall weather. And from here, we started working together and maybe implementing some more fluids. And he started implementing more of those sports gels before the game and in between the games. And then after the mid-season, we started the spring season where he started lacrosse. And from the first game of lacrosse, he started cramping again. So from here, we decided we need to start implementing some sort of plan, figuring out what to do, because obviously once he starts cramping, it's a whole thing. You have to go out on the field, stretch it, have him be able to get up, get to the other side of the field, stop it, make it so it's not so tight, and then get them back out. So it's a process. So some things that we have done to help this athlete is, first, I just had asked him what he was eating daily, or just like what a week would look like. So when I'm talking to him, he's one of those people that doesn't like to eat breakfast because he's not hungry in the morning. It's early in the morning, whatever. So he goes to school, maybe has some sort of snack, whether that be a banana or has a water. And then by the time he gets to lunch, he has a normal lunch, whether that's like a sandwich or, I don't know, something else, a chicken sandwich. And then after that, he has a break in between after school and sports because they practice a little bit later. Or if game time is, it's a 2 hour difference between after school. So he says that he has a Gatorade, he takes the sport gel, he might have a snack of just grilled chicken and maybe some rice, and then he goes and plays his game. He doesn't usually like to eat right before the game, so he's implementing those sports gels. So when I was talking to him about this, I was questioning, like, that's all you're eating in a day? And, like, what about when you get home at night? And he told me when he comes home at night that he is, eating just a normal dinner, whatever parents have. Maybe one day it's pizza, maybe some other day it's whatever, she cooks something. So it doesn't seem like the day has much structure to it or much thought into it. And that's where my first thought was, maybe it's not just drinking, it's also fueling the body and depleting those glycogen storages. Because of the energy system in lacrosse and it being high anaerobic activity and those short bursts of activity, he's using so much of his fuels that are stored inside of the body that they're depleted so fast, and that he's not even taking the time to replenish them, especially at halftime, but let alone during the day. So I think that's where that cramping is coming from, but also because of the hydration aspect to it as well. Now, some things that are worth considering are that we haven't gotten to yet, but would be worth assessing, is whether or not he's a salty sweater, if he's dehydrated before practice, if he ate before practice, does he have a food log? So these are all things that we're going to discuss. So when doing more of like a BMI assessment, we found that it was about 18.5, and he is on like the healthy spectrum, but he's still on that lower end of like underweight. I know that he has trouble gaining weight, again, fast metabolism. And yeah, moving on to his in-season participation. So we really want to increase his whole meal regimen and his fluid regimen. and make sure that he is really replacing those salts and fluids, as well as taking the time out to eat more of a balanced whole grain carbohydrates, proteins, produce, and healthy fats. So some of this would look like, if he was doing whole grain carbohydrates, it would be bread, cereal, oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, whole grain pasta, baked or sweet potato. And then some of those lean proteins should be eggs, low-fat milk, low-fat cheeses, Greek yogurt, salmon, tuna, chicken breast, beans, or pork. Some produce should be like salads, cooked raw veggies, berries, pineapples, whole fruits, applesauce, and fruit juices. And then healthy fats being oils, avocados, hummus, nuts, seeds, and peanut butter. Now, looking into his nutritional diet that he was talking about before, I don't think any of that is whole foods in general. And I think that making more of a structured plan of what he's supposed to be eating in the morning, what he's supposed to be eating in the middle of the day, before practice, a few minutes before the game, in between games, after games. I think that with that knowledge and education, he could change his daily diet to even become better in sports performance and overall healthier and feel better and not be at risk of injury, and even risk of cramping will decrease. Now, when looking at exercise associated muscle cramping, there are a lot of studies that support, whether people are drinking Gatorade, or if they're drinking water, or if they're not or if they're eating before, and there's obviously specific sample groups. So one of the studies that I was looking at did have some inconclusive data saying, sometimes it's not even like food and fluid, and that's what's related to the muscle cramping. It can be some other stuff, environmental factors, and muscle fatigue and all that kind of stuff as well. So other things do play a role, and you're not going to eliminate cramping as a whole just because you change your diet, but you could definitely decrease the risk. So when talking more about to this athlete and educating him about 3 to 4 hours before he's going to go into game time, we want to consume carbohydrate-rich snacks to top off those glycogen and muscle storages in the body. Some of those good options are that peanut butter, that honey on toast, fruit and granola smoothies with low-fat granola, oatmeal with brown sugar, cottage cheese, chicken, fish, like if you have like a tuna fish pouch with some like on a sandwich, or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or crackers, or whatever. So choosing that these meals that are low in digestion and help, that will make it not so hard on GI, even if you're getting those pregame jitters, it will help a lot. So once talking about this with this athlete, maybe having him try it during practices, or, when he's just exercising regularly throughout like the summer or preseason, when he's just weightlifting, getting adjusted to adding in those foods before playtime. That way it will help with getting used to it during actual game time and competition. And that way, maybe that will be the difference that it makes. Some other things to discuss with this athlete was eating during exercise, again, being super tricky, or that halftime area. But if we can just implement more of those fluids, Gatorades, if he wants to just do like a bar or banana or something small that can just go down easy and again avoid GI digestion issues, we can also maybe decrease the risk and replace some of those glycogen storages in that time, and then when he goes back out, it will decrease the risk, because usually the cramping issue does happen after that halftime mark into that second half, when usually those muscles glycogen levels deplete, and muscle fatigue and everything else. So and then I think the key for this athlete is after that recovery time and eating those balanced meals, and drinking for recovery, and really focusing on that part can aid and make a huge difference for his performance again, especially on those Saturday games when Sunday we don't have practice, we don't have games, but we do play on Saturday, and then we play again on Monday. It's really important to balance those meals and really make sure that you're resting and recovering and nourishing the body the way it's supposed to be. So again, aside from all of these things, food-related, fluid-related, I think that it's worth bringing up the temperature and climate in New Jersey. During the fall season, I know that we're mostly focusing on the spring season. We're going from heat acclimatization all summer, doing hot, and then getting into those colder seasons. And then you go into the spring seasons where you're focusing more on that colder into hot. So it's more rare to have some of those hot days during practice. And I think that we need to start focusing on acclimating and drinking more even when it's colder. That way when we get to those hotter seasons, your body's not so surprised, and when it's sweating, it has the time to recoup and it's already adjusted to those fluid levels. Because just as important in winter it is to rehydrate, even though you might not think you're being thirsty or you need to eat or drink during exercise, it's just as important. So I think that's something to consider. Weather is huge, and especially in other athletes in other parts of the country, they might not have these issues as other people do. So some of the treatment that I would suggest for this athlete is obviously education and, talking about some of those things we just talked about earlier in this video, and, saying like, these are the options that we should be doing. And I think that first doing a presentation to all the kids to say, this is what you should be doing, and laying it out on a nice piece of paper that's like very clear and bold in pictures and shows serving size and suggestions. Putting a number to it could be just much easier than just saying, oh, well, what should I be doing? Or I don't know what I should be doing, so I'm not going to do anything. And that way, as a team, if they are doing it together, it's easier to establish some sort of regimen and, support from everybody else. So then some other things that we could do as well is utilizing a fluid and food chart or journal or something to kind of write down what I'm eating for the week, and then looking at that journal for the specific athlete that's having the issue and say, well, is it because we're not doing something here, or we need to implement some sort of snack or drinking here? So that way we can check with the athlete and say, hey, this is where we can improve. Let's try this for the next week and see if that makes a difference. And also, if they don't have some sort of regimen planned out, we can assist in making some sort of regimen with options that he should be eating at certain times or certain things throughout the day, and that will help as well. As dehydration, also looking for like self-recognition patterns for the athlete itself. So you can say, I'm really thirsty today, or my urine was a different color today, and I could tell that I'm a little bit dehydrated. Some of those patterns will help ask questions and also allow for energy deficits to be made throughout the day and kind of figure out those patterns. Something else that we could do is also adding in a smartwatch and, tracking those calories expended. How much are you actually working out in a day? How many calories are you expending? Are we having enough energy in to energy out, and, fixing that problem that way. So obviously utilizing a balanced diet will help with that cramping issue, and obviously food and fluid will also assist in that intervention. Obviously, there's many ways to test for dehydration, such as specific gravity in urine, which at a high school level is easy to utilize because we obviously have to do that for wrestlers. So being able to utilize that method if necessary to check dehydration patterns throughout a day, you can access that. I know that there are other ways to access dehydration or sweat rate and, type of sweat concentration in the athlete to see, are you a salty sweater? Are you a more like sweating just regular water, more concentrated? And from there you can recognize different drinks to suggest to the person. However, sometimes at this level in the secondary setting, you don't have access to those things. So you kind of utilize what you can do back to, eating, drinking, and those regular patterns that are more set in stone. And, some changes in my practice after reviewing some of these methods and I adopted from this case itself is, there is ways to help out kids, and if they want the help, we can offer it to them. And, cramping might seem like it's not a big issue, but consistently in a game, if you're stopping each game to help somebody who's cramping and it's consistently disruptive and, they're always having a problem, like we have to find a solution just like to any injury. And sometimes nutrition needs to be looked at from an injury evaluation perspective as well. We're always trying to help kids do certain exercise, rehabilitation, prevention strategies for injuries. Like, why aren't we doing that for more whole-rounded nutrition and food care and taking care of our bodies in a wellness perspective? So I think that in the future, accessing some of those things and helping out more of a whole-rounded issue with hydration and nutrition accessing some of those materials in the athletic training room and, doing those presentations preseason to allow everybody to know the numbers and what they're looking for and what they should kind of change in their diets while they're being an athlete instead of like when they're off season can really help change the practice that's going on. So thanks everybody for listening to my case study. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I look forward to listening to everybody else's.